Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays, Geet. Thank you so much for taking out time to have a conversation with me. Uh, Geet, you had an accident at the age of 10, and that is a very formidable, that's the age when people are forming opinions of life. They're observing a lot of things. Since you're a relationship, you talk a lot about relationships. Tell me, did your relationship with your parents or their relationship with you undergo some change when they saw you moving on to a wheelchair at that age?
I think at that age, I think, as you said, a 10-year-old is a person who's really discovering their independence for the first time. I think a 10-year-old is when it's like, I'm going to do it myself. मैं अपने आप करूंगी, and all of the sudden it was like, I can't. मैं बिस्तर से ही नहीं उठ सकती हूँ. I can't reach a glass that's up high. So all of a sudden I found myself dependent even more on my parents who were probably at the place where they thought that I was going to become more and more independent. And so, I was very dependent on them. And I think they became very, very protective initially. But I was really blessed because I had parents that, realized that I'm in a wheelchair, but I can still do everything. They didn't ever say, okay, अब ये wheelchair में आ गई है तो ठीक हो, इसको घर पे रखो, इसको लोगों की नजरों से दूर रखो. It wasn't like that. It was basically for me, the good thing was the accident happened at the end of the school year. So वो summer holidays थे मेरे पास to be able to recover. So when the school year started again, I actually went back to school on the first day of school. There was no question about कि मैं पढ़ूंगी नहीं, मैं कुछ बनूंगी नहीं. My parents encouraged me कि करना है, from the first day. And so I think they were like that driving force behind me. So I wasn't able to just have a pity party and think, okay, मेरी जिंदगी खत्म हो गया, मैं कुछ नहीं कर सकती. Yes, I would have days where I would have forced things out, but my family was always, they expected of me, even though the accident happened, instead of, bechari, bachchi, isko comfortable rakho, it was like, no, challenge her. I was still expected to go back to school and get good marks. The first year I went back to school, I actually ran for student body president, just student ke elections mein hote hain. I danced on stage that year in the wheelchair because I was a kid who liked to dance. I participated in sports day activities in my wheelchair. Sab kuch wheelchair mein baith ke I did. And I think it was because of that relationship with my parents who didn't stop me. In fact, they pushed me and they encouraged me and they said, okay, do it. And I think, for me, as of course, I became very dependent, especially on my mom, because, I needed her to help me get out of bed, how to help me, use the toilet, get anything. But at the same time, they were also the people who were encouraging me to become independent and figure out, ठीक है मैं ये नहीं कर सकती हूँ, but किस तरह से बाकी चीजें कर सकती हूँ. I can't walk, I can't stand, but I can still do everything in life. But I just have to figure out किस तरह से.
So this is very beautiful because, there's a very strong message here of how the parents need to build that confidence and encouragement for the children who may be going through challenges. But the people around you, you use this word bicharapan and, victimized, and, people start having a different kind of a conversation. They do it with the right intent. They may be wanting to help you overcome certain things. But there's a lot of toxic positivity that they come up with, based on your experience, your observation, your own life journey. What is it that you recommend to people who unknowingly, despite their right intent, may be adding to toxic positivity to someone who may be challenged with certain things in life? And it's not just being crippled, but many things in life.
I think we need to be open to not putting people in boxes. I think, like when people see me, for example, being disabled with a visual disability, it's ya to I'm a bichari, ya I'm a motivation. I can't be just a normal person. And, having certain expectations from you. And so one of my biggest platforms is trying to show people that, ठीक है मैं wheelchair में हूँ, but I'm a normal person. Like my content does not revolve around me being in a wheelchair. आधा टाइम तो लोगों को दिखता भी नहीं है कि मैं व्हीलचेयर में हूँ, बिकॉज व्हीलचेयर दिखती नहीं है मेरे कंटेंट में, बिकॉज आई डोंट वांट कि लोग मुझे फॉलो इसलिए करें बिकॉज बेचारी व्हीलचेयर में है, चलो इतना कोशिश कर रही है, इसको फॉलो कर लो. एंड आई डोंट वांट पीपल टू ओनली फॉलो मी बिकॉज दे सी कि ओके, you know, she's a motivation. I want people to actually listen to what I'm doing, listen to what I'm saying. So I think we need to give people a chance. Don't prejudge them in your mind. I think that's what leads to that toxicity, because we prejudge people, and so we put them in a box, and then we have certain expectations of them, of what they must be feeling, of what they must need, of what they you know, rather than just asking. Be open, ask the person. You know, the whole you know, bechari mindset ke bechari wheelchair mein hai bahut sundar. You know, that whole thing where they're complimenting you, but they're not complimenting you. You know, some things you have to learn to keep in your mind and not say it out loud. Just, you know, even if you think you're being kind in some way, I think it's being sensitive to the other person. And, you know, a lot of disabilities, mine is visual, but other people's are not visual, right? Everyone has inabilities, I think. And so just being open-minded, I think, is really important in our relationships with other people. For me, I was really, really lucky. Like I said, when I went back to school, even my teachers also didn't put me into this box of she's in a wheelchair, so now we have to treat her differently. Instead, like my physical education teacher, jahan hum sports karte the, he actually, unhone ek wheelchair kharidi, and her class mein dusri team ka ek bachcha wheelchair mein baithta tha, and he made it so that wheelchair mein baithna was like a privilege, कि सारे बच्चे चाहते थे कि they get to be the one in the wheelchair. And so he always made me included in everything. And so the other kids started seeing me as normal, कि ये normal है, ये, you know, she's not different. I mean, I remember the boys would even rank the girls, you know, कि सबसे सुंदर कौन सी है ये वो. And I would, you know, initially I remember thinking I'm going to be at the bottom now that I'm in a wheelchair, right? But I was not at the bottom because of the mindset that my teachers created in the students, that she's just a normal girl. ठीक है, अब ये चल नहीं सकती है, but she's like the other girls. She's like the other students. And so I think that was, it was not putting me in that box that really made the difference.
And Geet, do you think that how you are treated as a child, I mean, I'm not talking of you specifically, but anyone being treated as a child, for their strengths, their weaknesses, you know, it defines how their relationship as an adult would be. What is your take on this?
I think our childhood and the way we're treated does form our thoughts and our behaviors. If we're accepted as a child, we grow up with more confidence. If we're encouraged as a child, we grow up with more confidence. And if we're always discouraged, always put down, always things are pointed out, कि तुम ये नहीं कर रहे हो सही से, तुम वो नहीं कर रहे हो सही से, I think that does affect you. I think, you know, I think it really makes a difference. Like I said, for me, I was always encouraged. I was always taught to concentrate on what you can do rather than on what you can't do. And then, you know, God will make all things possible. So for me, it was always focus on जो आप कर सकते हो, उसको और improve करो, उस पे और focus करो. And ठीक है, जो नहीं कर सकते हो, उस कोशिश करते रहो. But I know for a lot of kids, we focus on what they can't do. Marks तुम्हारे सही नहीं आए, तुम इस टीम में select नहीं हुए, तुम ये उस बच्चे की तरह नहीं करते हो. And I think that creates an inferiority complex in us, and that creates a, you know, it affects the child's confidence. And so I think parents have to be very mindful of how they're dealing with their kids and how they're speaking to their kids, speaking encouraging words, speaking positivity. Yes, you can encourage your child to do better, but you don't have to put them down. I mean, I think it's just किस तरह से आप वो चीज बोलते हो. Like आप, you know, ताली बजाते हो कि, you know, good try, या आप कहते हो कि नहीं, अगली बार better करना. You know, but ताली बजा के you can say good try, do better next time. There's a difference, right? कि आप किस तरह से उस चीज को handle कर रहे हो. And I think that does affect our mentality as we grow up, because every experience in our life affects us in some way or the other. And I think when we're children, it is really our parents and the way they treat us and how they see us forms how we start seeing ourselves.
And Geet, let me come towards adult relationships. Uh, in your opinion, since you've been talking about relationships a lot, and this comes from various phases of your life, the experience, the training in psychology while you were studying law, etc. What does healthy relationship look like to you?
I think, all relationships are different, definitely, because individuals are different. But I think in a healthy relationship, there needs to be open communication. There needs to be respect. Um, there needs to be, I think, support for one another. I think those three things are really important. Trust, of course, trust and love, are just the basics. But I think, we need to be sure that for a healthy relationship, I think one of the biggest foundations is communication. I think in everything relationship related, I feel like if we just learn to communicate with one another, things would change drastically.
How does one do that? Because I've seen a lot of people who love their partner, who love, they are full of love for their partner, but they're unable to express it. They're not able to say and let the person know that, listen, I care for you, I love you. You know, how can, despite not being able to communicate so openly, you can still nurture a beautiful relationship?
Well, I think, there's five main ways that we express, right? That we express our love to our loved one. One is words, which I think, it seems like it should be the easiest, but for a lot of people, it's difficult to say the words, I love you. Then there's touch, there's giving them time, there's giving gifts, and then there's acts. And I think that, all of those have their place. Words, of course, like I said, I think it is important to get beyond our inhibitions and to say the words I love you, even to our parents, even to our siblings, of course, to that special someone in your life, because for a lot of us, hearing those words makes a huge difference. But people are scared. People cannot always communicate that way just because of the way we've been brought up. We're not used to saying those words. Gifts works, but I think gifts a lot of times, aren't as meaningful. There are people whose love language is receiving gifts. So of course, in that case, it does matter. But I think more than that, again, it's an intimate touch, which, can just be putting your hand on the other person's hand, patting them on the shoulder, gently patting their face, like a child. Time, I think, is one of the most important ways to show that you love somebody is actually giving them time. Like they say that time is probably the biggest gift you can give anyone because it's that one thing that you can never get back in life. So I think giving time is a really good way to express your love for someone, because everyone knows that आजकल की society में सब इतना busy रहते हैं ना कि अगर कोई आपको अपना समय दे रहा है ना, so obviously you're important to them, you're special to them. And then just acts, like I think random acts, little things that we do, like my Giaji, he is our computer guy, right? So him fixing my computer when it's not working lets me know he cares for me, right? Doing little acts that cooking someone's favorite meal lets them know that you care about them, that you care about what's important to them. Watching their favorite TV show because they like to watch that, sitting next to them and watching that with them. I think, some of the best ways to express love, like I said, making time, actually sitting and listening to the person. I think a lot of times we don't take the time to listen, and half the time, all we want is someone to listen to us. And so if someone makes the time to listen to me, I'm going to feel like they care about me. Making their life easier, like I said, by those little tiny acts that just cleaning, like when my mom cleans my room, it shows me that she cares about me, like she's thinking about me. When a random surprise, sometimes, just doing a random surprise, whether it's a text message just in the middle of the day saying, thinking of you, supporting the other person in what they're doing, in their dreams, in their goals, in their hard times. I think these are all ways that we show someone, I love you, I care about you, without necessarily saying the words. And I think, it's important even for us to realize who are on the receiving end of that if the person isn't saying the words, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love us if they're doing the acts. Because I think actually words without the acts are meaningless.
But Geet, sometimes the way you express things may not be similar to what the other person expects, and their definition of that act could be very different. Now, one of the things that a lot of people do is they show their love, or they show their act would be to become possessive, and they say that it's because I love you so much, but this can turn into something very claustrophobic for the other partner. So how does one manage this situation?
I think, I think the reason we become extra possessive is because of insecurities. A lot of times it's really because we're afraid that we're going to lose this person. We're afraid that we're not good enough for them. We're afraid कि उनको कोई और भी अच्छा मिल जाएगा. It's really a fear that this person has, an insecurity that they have. So I think, again, communication, like I said earlier, I think communication is the most important thing in a relationship, because for both people, the person who's being possessive needs to communicate why they're being possessive, what their fear is, why they think this person shouldn't be doing X, Y, Z. And the person who's being smothered, who's being suffocated, needs to express what they're feeling, calmly, that, I feel this way when you do this. I feel suffocated. I feel, like I'm not able to express myself. I'm scared to say what I feel because of the way, sometimes you react. So I think people need to be just, really expressive. I think the person who's being over possessive needs to, first of all, stay grounded in reality. I think a lot of times we're over possessive because what if, agar ye ho gaya to, as opposed to realizing कि अभी क्या हो रहा है, क्या इस person ने आपका trust कभी तोड़ा है, नहीं तोड़ा है, तो why are we, treating them like they're, like a traitor, or that they're a cheater when they're not. Really staying grounded in the reality of what your situation is right now, and realizing कि ये what ifs तो कभी खत्म ही नहीं होंगे. अभी क्या situation है, अभी ये person faithful है ना, अभी ये person honest है ना, अभी ये person कभी भी कुछ ऐसा नहीं करता है जानबूझ के जिससे आपको hurt होता है. So why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? I think the person needs to be, like I said, open and honest about their insecurities. They need to think. Like, अगर आप दूसरे को रोक रहे हो ना कोई चीज करने से, पहले एक बार सोचो, अगर वो आपको उसी चीज के बारे में रोके तो आपको क्या लगेगा? Are we imposing a double standard? कि उसके लिए ये standard है, मेरे लिए ये standard है. So I think it's a lot of self-reflection that needs to go into it, to help you stop being so possessive. Of course, you can't just overnight stop being possessive, because that, you can do that on the surface level, but अंदर से आप bitterness इकट्ठी होगी आपके अंदर. You actually have to come to terms with, why am I being possessive? Is what I'm requesting unreasonable? What is the reality of our situation? And focus on yourself. I think a lot of times we're also extra possessive when we have a lot of free time. But if we start focusing on ourselves and bettering ourselves, and really keeping ourselves busy, I think you have less time to worry about the what ifs, that you have less time to be insecure. And I think, of course, time, and hopefully the other person's behavior is such that they make you feel secure in the relationship.
And Geet, I have heard you talking about long distance relationships in one of your videos, etc. But अभी अगर हम देखें तो long distance relationship बहुत बदल गई है. There was a time when long distance meant that you would have to make an ISD or an STD call to connect with someone, and वो चिट्ठी लिखेंगे, and you don't know what is going on in other person's life. But the digital connectivity today has made you being present or being together all the time, in fact more than what you could
Yeah.
handle. It's just that the person is not in person with you. So except for the touch, everything else is there. So do you think the long distance relationship of today has a very different challenge of what we would see almost like 2 decades ago?
Definitely, definitely. Because before it was the, kabutar jaja stage, we're sending our chitty, so you don't know what this other person's doing. And they don't know what you're doing. But there was just this level of you just have to trust. Now, because we know what the other person, we can know what the other person is doing at every minute. I think the problem is really suffocating the other person and putting them on too tight a leash. कि मुझे हर पल accounting though. I think in a long distance relationship in today's society, we do need to make an effort to communicate with the person on a daily basis. I think it helps to get rid of our insecurities, but that daily basis does not mean कि आप 5-5 6-6 घंटे हर रोज बात करो, because obviously, everyone has things they need to do in their lives. They have, jobs, they have school or college, they have families, they have, things they need to get done, and you cannot physically spend 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours on the phone all day with this other person because of whatever. But I think it is important that we communicate on a daily basis, like you would with a partner who is living near you, just because it is so easy. So if you're not doing it, if you're not sending a text message, or you're not saying a quick good morning or a hello for even 5 minutes, there's probably something going on, because everyone is on their phones all day, right? We're communicating with someone or the other. And if we're choosing not to communicate with our partner, that's a red flag. I think in today's society, the way today's communication is, I think, and when we are communicating, I think we need to be very open and honest. I think we need to let this person know what's going on, what are we feeling? Because I think the biggest problem is because of this, the World Wide Web, and because of photos and all these social media apps, if you're going and you're meeting so and so, कहीं ना कहीं से आपके पार्टनर को पता चल जाएगा, because कहीं कोई फोटो वो देख लेंगे, किसी के वीडियो में वो देख लेंगे, कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा. So I think that creates for tensions, that creates for insecurities. But if we're just open and honest, I'm meeting these people today, hey, I'll talk to you later. If we're just open and honest, this is what I'm going through right now in my life, I think that helps get rid of a lot of the insecurities. So, one, I think we do need to communicate more often now because we can. Two, we need to be very open and honest in our communication. And also in that communication means listening to the other person and hearing what they're saying. It needs to be a two-sided thing. I think we need to, go on those virtual dates. We can't go on real dates. But I think with the way social media is right now, with the way we can do video calls, going on a virtual date, and virtual date does not mean कि आप लोगों को दोनों को restaurant में जाके बैठना है और phone को सामने रखना है. I just mean make a time where, a lot of times when we're talking to our loved ones, it's multitasking, right? Phone ऐसे लगा रखा है, साथ में हम कुछ और कर रहे हैं. But by virtual dates, I mean is make a time once a week, or, as often as you guys decide you can with your schedules, जहाँ, कुछ देर के लिए, you're just focused on each other. It's not a multitasking. And even at that time, you guys can decide we're going to binge watch a show together, so you feel that, you don't have that touch, like you said, but you feel that intimacy, you feel that closeness because you're doing the things other couples are doing, but you're just doing it with your video call. I think doing little special surprises, letting the other person know I'm thinking of you, whether again, it's a text message, whether it's a meme that we send the other person, just little things to let the other person know you're thinking of them. And then always that future plan, I think, is really important. कि हम कब मिलेंगे? I think वो पहले ज़माने में भी important था, and अब भी है कि हम कब मिलेंगे, कब ये रिश्ता virtual से real, life mein badlega. I think that is really an important step because that also gives the person a hope. It gives them a security that, this isn't just time pass. This is something real. It's something more. But I think we do have to navigate and realize that if you're in a long distance relationship, you can still smother the other person and be over possessive. And wo cheez we have to be really careful that we do not do, because yes, in a long distance relationship, it is easier for them to find someone else who's not so possessive, to find someone else who's not smothering you.
And Geet, since we're talking of possessiveness, jealousy in some context or the other, and you said that a lot of insecurities you have, which is, and what you do by being possessive is an expression of your own insecurities, right? We all grow up in our own belief systems. We have observed the value systems of our parents, of friends around us, and we create our own opinion of what is right, what is wrong, etc. you know but as and when we grow, we start forming relationships, and usually the typical belief is that a guy's best friend is a guy and a girl's best friend is always a girl. But we've seen in many instances where a guy's best friend could be a lady, or vice versa. But because you have grown up in certain belief systems and value systems, it is not very well accepted by your partners, and this leads to unnecessary jealousy because of whatever insecurities. How does one deal with that situation?
Again, it's just open and honesty. I think there has to be you have to have open communication, open conversations about this, right? Like you have to not just be like, well, this is just the way it is from my side. I think you have to listen to the other side, the other person's point of view. You have to and if you're feeling like, okay, this relationship is inappropriate that you have with your best friend, um I guess you have to express that, right? In a way, but in a healthy way, rather than, tum dono ka chakkar chal raha hai, ye wo. You have to, maybe be a little bit more objective in what you're pointing out. If you're pointing something out, being a little bit more understanding, that maybe you don't understand the relationship. And I think sometimes you have to, if it's something that you just cannot accept, then maybe it's one of the reasons that you decide, like we all have like our limitations, we all have our boundaries where it's like, this is not acceptable for me. And I think that's where we have to be open and honest with each other as to what our boundaries are in this relationship, what our limitations are, what things are a no-go. If you're doing this, then this relationship cannot work. And I think we have to be honest about that. We have to be open about that. And I think both people have to really figure out what they're comfortable with. And certain relationships, I think, if somebody does not like your relationship with your best friend, and your best friend has been your childhood best friend, is very, very important to you. I think we need to, if we start the communication early on, maybe we even decide that this is not the right relationship for me, because this person is never going to be able to accept this person in my life who's very, very important to me. So I think, sometimes, yes, we need to maybe be open-minded, maybe we need to learn to accept, but in certain situations, it's going to be a lifelong, sore point, or you just decide early on that maybe this isn't the right relationship. Maybe this is one of those boundaries that I'm not willing to, cross. This is one of those things, and a lot of times initially we sacrifice everything, right, for the other person, because I'm so in love. I'm okay. I'll let go of my best friend. I'll let go of this person. I'll let go of that person. But eventually we come to a point where, reality hits and we're like, no,
It's a
why?
pattern.
Why did I let go of all these things? I lost myself in the process. So I think really being aware of what's important to you when you're going into a relationship and what you expect from your partner. I think just being open and honest about that, I think is important for any relationship. And there's no right and wrong, I don't think. I think, if you're not comfortable with X, Y, or Z, it's okay to have those boundaries in your life. Yes, you can question yourself, why do I have these boundaries? And maybe some of the boundaries you will change as you mature. And I think some boundaries change as your relationship matures, right? But sometimes certain things are not okay with you, and that's okay. I think if we're honest with ourselves, I think it would save us from a lot of heartache in relationships, because आगे जाके वो चीज जो अभी आप दबा रहे हो, इशू बनेगा. तो क्यों ना शुरू से ही आप open and honest रहो, and then you don't get into a relationship with somebody who has things, who's so different than you in certain ways that आगे जाके it's going to blow up.
Right. And a lot of people have stress. whether it is work related or whatever. I mean, they have stresses that they're dealing with, and this affects their relationship, you know. And others, because they have come up with certain belief systems and values that we discussed earlier, they may not be able to understand it, kya hai, kyun tension le rahe ho is cheez ke bare mein, and all those things. But it is not in your control. And because you have, like you said, that you need people to listen to, but you have nobody to listen to, that pushes you into anxiety, etc. And communication could be very tough, could be very hard for the person to communicate. Are there some strategies for managing and resolving such kind of unsaid conflicts of not being by each other at that time? Are there some relationship building activities that you recommend that can help you deepen your connections where you feel understood?
I think again, like I said, communication, it is hard to communicate, but I think if we make it a point to maybe on a daily basis, ask the other person, how are you feeling and how can I help you? If we make it a point to just sit down, or maybe it's on a weekly basis, we have like these check-ins, right? Or even if it's on a bi-weekly basis, but have check-ins where you actually physically say the words, how are you feeling and how can I support you? And then listen to the other person. Because I think that we often want to help the person in the way that we think that we should help them, right? And that's where you're saying that there's a miscommunication because this person wants this and you're doing this and it's not matching. And that's where I think if we actually just ask the person, how can I support you? And then the other person honestly has to tell you, this is what I need. I need you to give me time alone. I need you to just listen to me. I need you to help me come up with a solution. If we can actually have that communication where, yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, some people are not used to it, but sometimes you have to make that effort to just have those, like I said, either whether it's weekly or bi-weekly check-ins where we actually, can you explain to me why you're feeling this way? Or, what is making you feel this way? I think a lot of that can really help. But I think if we just want to grow our relationship closer, I think active listening, like, the opposite of actually speaking the words, active listening is also really important. And active listening means pay attention to the person when they're speaking. Don't be distracted. I think a lot of times when the other person's speaking, especially these days, we're scrolling on our phone. We know we're listening, but they don't know we're listening. They think that you're bored of my conversation. You don't care about what I'm saying. So really actively listening, focusing on the person, not being distracted when they're speaking. Don't interrupt them in the middle. Let them finish what they're saying before you ask the questions, before you say what you think, and don't rush them. I think, I read somewhere that our mind works faster than how fast we speak. So you come up with the next question, or you think you know what they're going to say, and you finish the sentence for them. And it's just like a reflex almost for us to finish the other person's sentence because I know what you're about to say. But actually letting them say their thing fully, not rushing them. I think that is really important in the active listening part. And I think as we start learning how to practice active listening, I think that changes the game. Because when the person is actively listening to you, I think it makes it easier to speak, to communicate, to say what you need to say. I think other ways to really draw that, to build that relationship and make it closer is one thing I often tell people, even to make your own relationship with yourself closer. I think I talk about this thing called appreciation lists, where you basically make a list of if it's for your partner, what you appreciate about them, what you like about them, their positive qualities, the things that they've done for you, and add to this list on a daily basis if you can. But even for yourself, when we're talking about self-love, I often tell people make a list of 25 positive qualities about yourself. Make a list of 25 accomplishments, especially when people are feeling down about themselves. And if we do that for our partner as well, I think that helps us. And that helps us also having that list, like actually a list, not just a mental list, but actually a list. कि जब हमारा झगड़ा भी होता है ना, and we feel like this person में इसमें तो कुछ अच्छा है ही नहीं. I don't know मैंने इसको चुना ही क्यों. Going back to that list reminds you. okay, this is why I picked the person. You put down the little things they did for you on a daily basis, even, because then you see, okay, abhi hum lad rahe hain, abhi things are not going well, but no, this person does care about me, or this person does have good qualities also. It reminds us. But I think that also helps you to, then when they are going through that stress or that difficult situation where you're not understanding them, you don't just see this high anxiety person, but you also go back and remember, okay, there's also all these other facets to this person's personality, to who they are, to what they do. So I think that also helps in when we're trying to build our relationships with the other person. I think digital fasting in today's day and age is really important. Having times where we stay away from TV, we stay away from our computers, we stay away from our phones. I think that is, that detox time and spending that with our partner, where neither of you guys are on your electronic devices, I think is really important. Because I think a lot of times these days, our together time is often when we're binge watching Netflix, together, which is good. It's good to do that at times, but I think it's also good to just sit together, go on a walk together, go on a vacation together, go to a restaurant and not look at your phone during the whole time you're at the restaurant, because probably no one's dying, doing those things, I think, is important for a relationship. I think technology has been good, but I think technology has hindered relationships in many ways. Because jo saath mein hai na, it feels like wo to saath mein hai hi na.
You take it for granted.
Yeah. And like a lot of times, I don't know if you've noticed that in your families, but I notice that sometimes we're sitting at a table and sab apne apne device pe lage hue hain. Restaurant mein sab apne apne device pe lage hue hain. Instead of us like talking like a family used to talk, okay, aaj kya hua aapke din mein, aaj, we're spending more time with our virtual friends or people who are not physically there with us than with the people who are actually sitting in front of us. So like what I make it a point that if I'm meeting with somebody one-on-one, I don't look at my phone. I sometimes don't even have my phone with me. I keep my phone in my purse. Yeah, Abhi, I'm with you. I'm going to spend the time with you. 1 ghante baad when I'm not with you, I'll look at my phone and I'll catch up. Car ride me, I'll catch up. But Abhi, I'm with you. I'm going to focus on you. And I think that is really important. And we need to do that for our relationships.
Sometimes you find the right partner, you get married, you have a great life, but then gradually the spark goes off. And is it just that you're taking that person for granted, or is it something more to it? What are some tips to reignite that love, that wanting to be with each other in a marriage, even after 10 years, 20 years?
Yeah, I think we get so comfortable with people, right? We just, in a way, yes, we do take them for granted. In a way, maybe they get boring, right? Because it's like, dal chawal, right? We're boring ho jata hai. We need something exciting. I think we have to create that excitement. I think one thing, a lot of couples are starting to do now is keep that once a week date night. So that once a week you're away from your responsibilities and you're just together, where you do those check-ins like I was talking about. That once a week date night gives you, and you have to dress up for it. It can't be a date night pin up, dress up like the first time you were meeting this person. Dress up like, when you used to go on dates before, jab aap nayi shaadi hui thi ya abhi shaadi hui bhi nahi thi, make it an exciting thing. You create those exciting moments by making it something special. Maybe you can't do it on a weekly basis, but bi-weekly or whatever, plan a vacation together. I think just even planning that vacation together brings intimacy, and then being on that vacation together, because lived experiences, I think, rekindle that excitement, create that intimacy, gives you something new to talk about, gives you something new to experience together. I think making physical intimacy still a priority. I think as couples get older, I think sometimes physical intimacy is no longer a priority. You've got kids, and those kids sleep in between you, so you're making physical intimacy a priority, I think is important in a long-term relationship. It's something that we start taking for granted. I think starting a hobby together, doing something where there's teamwork, where you're working together, I think can be a good thing, whether it's, a long-term hobby or it's just a project that you're doing together. Maybe you go take a pottery class or a painting class together, or, even an online class, but something that you're doing together and you're accomplishing something, because I think that creates new topics of conversation, that creates new memories. And I think one of the other things is actually every now and then going down memory lane together, remembering those, even the how we met conversation, going back and how did you feel when you first met me? How was, you've heard it 50 times, but hearing it again, because the person who's saying it revives those memories in them and those feelings in them again of what they felt when you guys first met, when you guys first fell in love, when you guys first started, that relationship. I think going through photo albums, going through pictures on your phone, reliving old memories, I think is a good way to remind ourselves of what was special before. And I think it can create that specialness now. But I think it's a lot of just making that effort. We have to make an effort. Relationships, when they start, are not easy. And I think keeping a relationship strong is not easy. A relationship is always going to require efforts from both partners. And I think that's just true of any relationship. Even our relationship with our parents, I think, requires effort, right? As we grow older, we have to make the effort कि जाके उनको मिलना है if we're not living with them. Phone करना है. It's easy not to call. It's easy not to go and visit. It's easy, कि I know they're fine, अगर कुछ होता वो खुद call कर लेते. But even that relationship requires effort, right? So any relationship in our life requires effort, and it requires us changing. You cannot always expect जो कल था वो आज भी वैसा ही होगा. We have to be willing to change with times. That doesn't mean कि प्यार कम हो गया है. It just means कि अब जिम्मेदारियां बदल गई हैं. But, like that whole thing we were talking about earlier about expressing love, I think younger couples, it's easier for them to say, I love you. As we grow older, our I love you is not, I love you. It's more, I made your favorite meal. I did the dishes today. I brought you your favorite, mithai, whatever, just, those little things I think are ways of saying, I love you, and keeping that, that other person feeling appreciated, and that relationship spark alive by creating those moments.
Yeah, I think what I heard you say is that, you have to figure out ways to reignite the feeling of what it was when you were more connected.
Yeah.
That's a very beautiful feeling. But Pete, when you get married, and this is more so for a girl, at least in India, what I see, when a girl leaves her house and goes into a totally new environment, and again, it goes back to the conversation that we were having, that, each one has their own belief system. So for you, the right way to have your meal is to be sitting on a dining table. But for someone else, being casual, watching TV while having your meal, sitting on your bed is the more relaxed way to do it. So each one will find the other thing to be incorrect, So, and this is what leads to discords or, miscommunication between in-laws and the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law, because you have different value systems, different belief systems that you have grown up with. How does one manage this relationship between a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law with the in-laws?
Again, it goes down to communication, which I think is so key. And I feel like if we can just master this art of communication, like master the art of, I think when a girl goes into a family, it's not that she doesn't want to fit in. She wants to fit in. She wants to have a good life. I mean, why is she marrying this person? Because in India, that you're not just marrying a person, you're marrying a family. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I think when you go in with this, hopefully you go in with this expectation that I want to get along with everyone. But sometimes she doesn't know how, right? Because she's grown up seeing XYZ and this is normal. And now all of a sudden she's thrust into this new situation that she has not seen before. And it's so different. But if someone would just communicate, I think, especially if the husband would just communicate, give her a heads up, कि हमारे यहाँ ऐसे होता है, हमारे यहाँ ऐसे होता है, like this is what they, and also, I think, like there are going to be certain things that, the couple needs to realize that, yes, our marriage needs to come first for us. It needs to be important to us. Yes, we are part of this bigger family, but we need to be sure that we are solid and we're going to support one another. There are going to be some boundaries that are going to need to be set. Sometimes it's not just every time the daughter-in-law, or the new person has to adjust. Sometimes certain little things can be adjusted the other way too, right? कि अगर हमारे घर में इसी तरह से रोटी बिलती है, but if she's bailing it a different way and it's okay, roti वही बन रही है. So, maybe sometimes, it's adjusting with the way she's doing things, right? So I think it needs to be a give and take, and I think there needs to be communication. And I think the person, I think one good way is to, the person whose family it is, like original family it is, should be the one trying to communicate, trying to be that go-between initially, at least, because initially bahu bolegi तो वो बुरी है, बेटा वही चीज बोलेगा तो वो समझ भी जाएंगे. सेम थिंग द अदर वे, दामाद बोलेगा तो वो डिमांडिंग है, बेटी बोलेगी तो वो समझ जाएंगे. So I think that needs to be a dynamic that a husband and wife need to realize, that don't just throw them into the situation and then expect that they're going to fight it out, because anything they say, there's a defensive mechanism sometimes. Initially there's that defensive no. But if their own child says it, they're more willing to understand. And yes, kabhi kabhi hota hai ki joru ka gulam ban gaya hai. But if, just figuring out how to say it in a way that you can make those adjustments. I think it's a lot of communication, trying to let go of expectations of this is how things are going to be, or this is what's expected, I think, on everyone's end, and really realizing that it's almost, it's almost like a baby coming into a family, right? उससे कोई expectations नहीं होते हैं, उसको सिखाया जाता है. तो इसी तरह से अगर कोई नया आपकी family में आ रहा है, instead of expecting things from them, why not go into it thinking कि अब इसको सिखाना है, time लगेगा, गलतियां होंगी, and it's okay, we're all on one team. Really, if families can realize that we're all on the same team, it's not, this new person against the rest of us, it's abhi hamari team member ban gaya. So let's all work together to make it successful, to make the relationship successful. I think it can be successful, but I think it's not just that person who needs to make the adjustments. I think it's the whole family, right?
I totally agree with you, Geet, because I think, there's more of acceptance that must also be there. Because हम लोग, like you said, कि हम वो नया member आया है, हमें उसे सिखाना है. It's like, without saying it, you're saying that, that person needs to learn something that she does not know, or he does not know. I think that we have to let go of the ego and be in more of acceptance that maybe what the other person is saying could be a better way to do the same thing. So that we have to, I think, let go of the ego, be in more of acceptance stage, and be willing to understand that there could be something better. And like you said, if we are a team, it's not just being successful, but we could also as a team become better than who we were and what we were.
Yes, like I was talking about the roti, different tarah se belte, maybe it's a better way.
Better way of making a roti.
Let's all be open. Let's all not think ke, jo hamara tha, wahi best hai. That, I think that's a really good point, that it's really, when you get a new member in the team, you hear their ideas. You want to make your team even stronger, right? That's why you recruited a new member into your team, because you think that person brings something of value. So maybe try to get that value from that person.
And I have two more questions. And these are centered around kids. हम adult relationships की बात करते हैं, उसमें बहुत सारी preconceived notions develop हो गए होते हैं. But when you're looking at children, like you said, that nobody is born with a learning. So it's all acquired learning, experiences, observations, etc. Now, how do you encourage children to remain curious? Because with all the experiences and observations, they're filling their head, their mind with what is right, what is wrong, and that kind of kills their curiosity. And the biggest challenge we as adults face, that we don't think out of the box, because हमें पता है ये करने से ये होगा, ठीक है ना? So how do you keep a child's curiosity for learning and creativity alive?
I think sometimes let them make their own mistakes. I think sometimes as parents or as elder people in their lives, we want to protect them from everything. So we're like, "नहीं, नहीं, ये यहाँ ना खड़े होना, गिर जाओगे, ये ना करना." But sometimes letting them make that mistake. Of course, not a fatal mistake, but letting them make those little mistakes, because that's how they learn. That's how they're going to discover things, letting them discover things as opposed to always telling them everything. कि ये ऐसा है या वो वैसा है. Let them be the ones who discover कि ये कैसा है. कि पानी गीला है. Let them touch the water. Let them splash in the water to see अगर ऐसे करोगे तो वो पानी आपके ऊपर आ जाएगा. Letting them make those little mistakes that are like experiments, almost like a science experiment for them, where they're discovering new things. I think not being irritated with them, because I think little kids have so many questions, and sometimes we get irritated because I remember the other day, somebody was over with their child, and the kid was asking questions, and he was like, "Aap itne sawal kyun puchte ho?" And I was like, because they're a child, they're going to ask questions, and it's our responsibility to answer what we can and to help them discover what they can. Make learning fun, I think, rather than making it something that's boring, something that's painful, something that's tedious. Making it fun, finding fun ways, taking them out to explore the world, to see things, to be a part of things. Rewarding the kids with praise rather than kind of rather than pointing out what they did wrong or what they didn't learn or what they don't know. Rewarding them with praise for what they do know, what they have learned, what they are experiencing, and sometimes us being the ones to ask them questions rather than them always asking us. Ask them a question, let them use their mind to figure something out. कि ऐसा क्यों है? And then they have to figure out कि क्यों है, or they have to give you an explanation for क्यों है. I think leading by example, if we remain curious, if we are always learning, if we're showing that it's something that's good and positive, kids are going to learn from what we do, right? If we're excited about learning and we're excited about new things and trying new, it's kind of like if we always sit at the dinner table and we always, whenever it's something new, we're like, we don't even want to try this, then our child will be like, I don't even want to try this. But if we're like, oh, naya hai, chalo, we should always try something new. Let me try this. Then your child's like, oh, naya hai, chalo, mommy always says we should always try something new. So I think it's a lot of leading by example. If we're showing them that we're willing to experiment, we're willing to learn, we're willing to step out of the box, then they're going to learn to be that kind of a person. They're going to be that person who questions things, who learns things, who grows.
And Geet, my last question to you is again centered around children. One thought process that I've come across when I speak to parents is that you should put the child through a disciplined life. They should know the reality of life. So it's like putting them through hardships so that they know what to do later in their life. And the other aspect is to know, let's not put them into, if they're not comfortable with this and they're saying that they're not comfortable with this, empower them, grow them with, nurture them with love. What is your perspective on this? And keeping in mind that children also observe not just the parents, but the friends, the teachers, their peers. So what can help overcome a parent's dilemma of what is the right way to do to manage their kids?
I think it's a balance. I think it's a balance, is choosing your battles. Every you know, I think in today's society, there are so many other influences on our kids that if we do not, you know, teach them from our experience and teach them our values, they're going to learn those values from someone else, and they may not be values that we think are correct. So I think we do have to, at some level, teach our kids what we believe and what we think, and what's right and what's wrong. But at the same time, I think there's that space where you need to give them that room to grow. So I think you have to pick your battles. There's certain things that are non-negotiables for us, right? This is a certain way of life in each family, right? Each person has like each set of parents has like their non-negotiables. Ki ye bahut important hai. We really want our kids to know this and to learn this. So those things, I think you teach your kids, whatever those non-negotiables are. But there's a lot of things that are that, as to be so, and it's not that big a deal. We'd like them to do this, but agar wo waise bhi karenge, to it's not the end of the world, and maybe those are the things where we don't have to force them. So we give them that opportunity to grow and to be individuals and not to just be carbon copies of us. So I think it's really just picking your battles, really figuring out what are the non-negotiables, what are the things that we really want our child to be instilled with these values and these beliefs, and what are the things that let them experiment, let them grow, let them learn, let them make their own minds up about these things, and let them, so I think there's a place for both things. Yes, we want to protect our kids. We don't want them to suffer unnecessary hardships, but at the same time, we need to be preparing them because sooner or later they will be experiencing things. And so we need to not put them in such a box that when they go out into the real world, they are, they're completely shocked as to what the real world is. So I kind of, I understand both perspectives, but I think it's really a balance in figuring out what, as a family, are your non-negotiables, what are the most important things to you as a family, and then letting the child experiment and grow, and hopefully, once you've put those non-negotiable things in them, instill those beliefs and values in them that you think are so important, you're going to trust the choices that they make. You're going to trust that they're going to be able to make wise choices. And maybe that also comes with age, right? It comes with what age you decide to do these things at. There's certain ages that maybe you don't want them, exposed to so many different things, but as they grow older, you kind of have to slowly, give them a little bit more, thodi aur dheel do, thodi aur unko individuality ke liye wo thoda sa space do.
My own perception is that you have to empower the child through the two words that you just used, trust and faith. So you have to trust them for what they are doing, and because that will help them do things that, the feeling of being trusted is such a strong, empowering feeling for anyone, not just a kid, but it will help them grow with that. And second is, have faith in them. Don't just judge them or be fearful of that वो कुछ गलत कर रहे होंगे. क्यों ना हम faith करें कि शायद वो ठीक ही कर रहे हैं. And that is, I think, is a very empowering feeling, right? There's a risk of allowing them to do mistakes, which could be expensive mistakes to do, but so be it. They learn from it. So that's my perspective. And I thought I should share it.
No, I think that's good.
Yeah. And Geet, this has been such a wonderful conversation because what I felt was, this is not something that you've learned from a psychology class. I mean, honestly, I felt these are life lessons that you're sharing with the world. And, there were big takeaways for me. I mean, when you were talking about active listening, it just took me away from कि ठीक है सुन रहे हैं लेकिन क्या दूसरे को पता है कि आप सुन रहे हैं, that is such a important thing for a person to understand, that I am being heard. Whether you're listening or you're not listening, the feeling of being heard is so important. And second is, like you said, that when you're making the appreciation list, and I'm not talking of creating your own appreciation list right now, because हम दूसरे का appreciation list तो बना लेते हैं, but not many people think of creating an accomplishment list for the other person. And this is so important, especially, I'm married to a working professional, and she's a dentist and everything. And sometimes we feel that, उन्होंने जो किया है उससे बहुत ज्यादा कर सकते थे, but we forget that what they have done is also much more than what other people may have done. And that's a very powerful feeling that came out of the conversation with you. And third was also the perceptions that we create. you know uh, we are we create very strong perceptions just by what we are seeing, and we do not allow people to do things and then create allow us to create perceptions. We preconceive a lot of things based on hearsay, and this is probably what leads to creating your own expectations in your mind. And then when your expectations are not met, and this is, I'm talking of specifically when you're welcoming a new member in the family, whether it is the daughter-in-law or a son-in-law, or for that matter, from the perspective of a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law, about welcoming the in-laws and understanding that they have had their own journey. That just opens up. So these are few things that were very strong takeaways, when I'm listening to what you were saying. So thank you so much for taking our time. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective of life for our audience. I'm sure this is going to be a really meaningful conversation when people watch this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.